Welcome back to GH Today here on GH1 Television. Just gone by an interesting conversation on hair transplant and other issues. And I'm sure that perhaps you've taken a cue from that. But now let's talk generally about the pharmaceutical industry. Let's look at the pharmacist. You know, they are the first port of call, mostly for health issues. When we have challenges, you don't go to the hospital, right? You quickly look for a pharmacist, a pharmacy nearby, and speak to a pharmacist there. And mostly, they've saved millions of lives with their interventions. But let's look at that industry. And this morning, I've been joined in studio by Dr. Paul Owusu Donko. He is senior lecturer at the University of Ghana. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Josh, for having me here.
I hope you're doing well.
I am great.
Amazing. And I remember with the hair transplant conversation.
Yeah.
Well, that's just on the side.
Oh, I mean, I'll tell you this, Josh. Baldness sometimes could be a sign of wisdom. And I want to tell you that I'm a walking encyclopedia as I sit here.
Yours is wisdom.
It is wisdom.
Yeah, but I have a friend, Pius. I can say same for him. But it's good to have you once again.
Same.
But talking about the pharmacists, the pharmaceutical industry, it's played a very key role in our healthcare delivery, among others. But would you say that our system has been able to properly position pharmacy where it should be?
Good one, Josh. I would say that we've done a lot, and there's a lot more we can do. And you can look at it from how we integrate the pharmacist into the general health ecosystem. Truth of the matter is that the pharmacy and the pharmacist, as you explained in your introduction, is often the first point of contact or the first port of call for many a Ghanaian looking for health solutions. But all too often, we get to a place where when we go to the pharmacy, we are either going there on a transactional basis rather than an investment form. As in investing into our health, we rather are thinking about it as I am going to spend my money on them. And because we think about it in a transactional sense, oftentimes we don't build a relationship with the pharmacist. And so our thought patterns have gone into more curative than preventive ways of healthcare. And I think that is what we are lacking as a country, what we are lacking as a people, that we think more of the pharmacists as they are making money out of me by selling medicines to me, rather than appreciating the pharmacist as your healthcare consultant who is there for preventive care more than the curative one. But of course, when we are unable to prevent and we therefore have a disease state, the pharmacist is the right person to go to help you in managing your condition.
So with that same mindset, if we're focusing on preventive, then the pharmacist will be out of business really early.
That is a beautiful point to make. And I'll tell you this. The pharmacist is not focused on the money he is making. He's focused on the healthcare he is giving to you. He's focused on your well-being. Because once we are all well, then indeed we are all wealthy. Because, I mean, face it, we say that true wealth is in health. So our commitment as pharmacists is to ensure that as a country we are healthy. Because when we are healthy, we are wealthy. In fact, the term we have, or our motto for the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, is that we are amicus humani generis, Latin for friends of the human race. Our focus is in safeguarding the health of the human race. And so I say it again, let's not be transactional in how we see the pharmacist. Let's be relational in how we see the pharmacist, that he is committed to your well-being. He is committed to you having the best of health outcomes.
Because I've heard stories where people say, oh, well, when you go to the pharmacy, these drugs are too expensive. Let's look for some chemical shop somewhere and get the same. And you get the same drug at rather reduced prices. And people are wondering, is it because it's mostly in an air-conditioned environment? Does that increase the prices of the drugs he sells?
That's a good point, the bit about how we are storing our medicines. Because let's understand that medicines are not ordinary items of commerce. Medicines have key roles to play, and how they are stored have a long way to go on their efficacy, how well they work within your body. If we are not careful, we would move to a place where we are penny-wise but pound-foolish. We are thinking that at the moment, I am not ready to part with X amount of money. I would rather get from an unauthorized source. So you think that you have resolved a particular condition, but you haven't. You've actually worsened your condition. And I tell people, you then move into an era where we say that the cure you were looking for has become more expensive than the disease you presented with in the first place. Because one, your disease would not have been resolved within the time you expected it to. Two, chances are that it will get worsened. And then you would have to spend more in finding a cure for it. So the cure you thought you had earlier, which was cheaper, has now become more expensive than the disease you started with in the first place. You have been penny wise, but pound foolish. Or in Ghana's term, we will say you have been peswa wise, but cedi foolish. Yeah.
Right. So the focus should be on getting quality that would address our health conditions.
Precisely.
And when you look at our system currently, so much pressure, immense pressure, I should say, on the health facilities. And so the minute we have a situation where nurses decide we are going to stay off work for one day, there's a huge challenge to the health sector. What role can pharmacists play in reducing the pressure on our health facilities?
I'm glad you asked this. We ought to look at optimization of the resources that are available to us. If you look at our doctor to patient ratio, if you look at our nurse to patient ratio, if you look at our pharmacist to patient ratio, these figures are often low. They are below what is optimal. But we are not taking advantage of the different practice areas within the healthcare ecosystem, such that almost every condition we push it to the health facility, we push it to the hospital. Then we overwhelm the system. When indeed the community pharmacy, which is the closest health facility to you in your community, and is open longer than most health facilities are so open for, and the pharmacist being the most approachable healthcare professional, all of these factors encouraging you to visit the community pharmacy. But if you miss that opportunity, and we start to push all of our attention onto the hospitals, then we overwhelm the hospitals. Then there's long lag time in terms of how long you have to sit and wait for consultations. There's a long lag time in how long you have to wait at the hospital pharmacy to receive your medicines. When the community pharmacy was just next door to you, and they could have caught the telltale signs of the condition that you did have. So I am glad about the intervention that the present government has put in place, which is the PHC, the primary health care approach that it is going with, where it is now integrating the community pharmacy into how we deliver primary health care. Oftentimes, the community pharmacist is only rewarded for the medicine that he purveys, that he sells. But we have gotten to a point where the current administration is recognizing that, yes, there must be some fee for service on the part of the pharmacist who does consultations, who does drug information services to the community. And I think this emboldens us as community pharmacists to continue to give out our very best to the everyday Ghanaian. And so I want to call on all Ghanaians that your pharmacy and the pharmacist are your primary healthcare partners, your friends, that you must build a good relationship with.
But Paul, is it not also a case that people seem to trust the doctors and the nurses at the health facilities more than the pharmacists, for which reason they would rather resort to the hospital directly without going through the pharmacy, the community pharmacy, I should say?
Josh, we can walk and chew gum. We don't have to say we are trusting only the doctor or the nurse or the pharmacist. They are in a team. That's the healthcare team. And the trust we have must actually be on all of the players within the healthcare team. But of course, the data supports what I say, that the pharmacist is the most trusted healthcare professional when you talk about the healthcare team. And it's because they are very accessible. They are right next door to you. But I would say again that our trust should be on all the persons that we entrust our healthcare issues to.
So if that's the case, why are people still preferring self-medication, among others? I know that some people would say, no, I prefer a drug that, our forefathers, and so they'll go to any herbal shop, regardless of whether it's licensed or not, and get any herbal concoction that is even sold in the neighborhood compared to visiting the pharmacy.
You are right, Josh. And you mentioned a key term here, self-medication. I would say that self-medication is not inherently bad. It is uninformed self-medication that is the problem. And we are in a digital space now where people tend to trust Google to diagnose and prescribe for them more than they do the healthcare professional who has stayed 6-7 years in school to be trained, to have the experience to diagnose you well and prescribe and dispense the right medicines. What I would say is that by all means, use technology, use AI to help you in understanding your disease condition. But when it comes to the final decision making, do not trust your AI tool to understand the nuances within your drug history, your medical history. That is why you need the personal touch of your pharmacist. You need the personal touch of your healthcare team to be able to help you with this. On the part of traditional medicines, I would say that the conversation is around integration. Let's not bastardize our traditional medicines. We've used them over the years, and we can tell from anecdotal evidence that they do work. But let's also understand that in how we train pharmacists, we train them on herbal medicines as well. So they do understand what may be contraindications from a Western medicine or Orthodox medicine as opposed to that of herbal medicine alone, when you ought to take them together, when you ought to separate them, when they may build synergies and all of these. That conversation is what you ask the drug expert, who is a pharmacist, to help you with all of these.
Quite interesting. And now I remember also again that I've done some work with the NCD Alliance, the Non-Communicable Disease Alliance. So there's quite an alarming rate, very, very worrying. And over the years, we've tried to do advocacy in terms of policy shifts and directions and all of that. But how can the pharmacists help in addressing NCDs in the communities, among others, hypertension on the rise, all of these things? That's
the burden we have here with us in Ghana, in fact, in the sub-Saharan African region, that we have the double burden of both communicable and non-communicable diseases. And I mentioned earlier that if we put too much stress on the hospitals, then they would get overwhelmed. Those who can catch these NCDs at a very early stage will be the pharmacy, the pharmacist in the pharmacy. And that's why I give kudos to the present administration, that they have incorporated the PHC, the primary health care, into the community pharmacy, where we are doing blood pressure monitoring, we are doing blood glucose, we are checking all of these, so we can catch these conditions right before they blow out. And so I talk again about being more preventive in our mindset than curative. And so the role the pharmacist can do in helping all of us is to continue to find out where are the trouble points, when is a client, when is a patient moving past the line where it is comfortable. So we catch them early. We are more preventive than we are curative.
Do we have a system where we are even sourcing data from pharmacies? Because I'm here thinking that in terms of outbreaks, the pharmacists should be the ones to quickly give data and realize that in this particular area, a lot of people are reporting with this kind of ailment, because not everybody will want to go to the hospital, by the way. But do we have that system?
We are building on it. And in the previous administration, there was the launch of the GNEP, the Ghana National Electronic Pharmacy Platform. So data is everything. Data is gold. And to be able to predict and forecast, we ought to have the data. We've moved from the era where when you come to the pharmacy, we write in foolscap notebooks, to where we now key data onto our softwares that manage the pharmacies. We are growing in terms of that, how we aggregate the data that we so store on these platforms. So, of course, we require a lot more investment into the digitalization of our drug information, not only in the hospitals, because, mind you, we have the DIMS that's able to coordinate or tease out that data. But at the community pharmacy too, we ought to have the platform that allows us to have a general forecast, not only of national, but right down to the community level. And so it's an ongoing conversation that we are having. The Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana is solely committed to how we use technology, we use digital solutions to help us achieve this data that helps with policy planning and implementation.
Quite interesting. But recently, we've realized that there's a high stress burden, especially on young people. People want to succeed regardless, and it's built a lot of stress burden. And the Mental Health Authority has given indication that, well, we have a ticking time bomb on our hands. How can pharmacists help with that?
So when you say this, I remember some of the counsel I give to my students that I often tell them, in the rat race, even when you get out of it, even when you finish first, you are still a rat. Our quest for get-rich-quick schemes, our quest for overnight success is pushing us beyond the limit. And this is having a toll on our mental health. Good news is that the pharmacist is well trained to be able to catch these signals early. They are well trained to network with psychological support that is able to provide interventions right at the onset for not just the young, the old as well. In fact, in pharmacy, we now have the PMAG, the Pharmacy Mental Health Association of Ghana, which is led by one of the executives of the Pharmaceutical Society, Dr. Richmond Edusapoku. Their commitment is towards safeguarding the mental health of all Ghanaians. And so every now and again, they are sensitizing pharmacists, particularly community pharmacists, to pick on the telltale signs of when people are overwhelmed, when mentally they are stressed out, that we can provide the needed interventions right at the time when we do see them.
Right.
So have a relationship with your pharmacist. Build a connection with your pharmacist. He is that stopgap for when you may just go over the ledge. He is the one who would spot all of these and help you address your mental health state.
Wow. I wanted to ask for a final words, but I think it can't get better than this. To have a relationship with your pharmacist.
Yes.
Don't just go and buy medicine and think it's a transactional relationship.
Thank you.
But then have that relationship where you can speak to your pharmacist, and then perhaps you don't have to worry about health conditions deteriorating.
Josh, I'm glad you're an advocate for the pharmacy and the pharmacist. Thank you so much for having me
But
here.
Doc, thank you so much for coming. I think we should have you again and have a broader conversation. But Pharm Dr. Paul Owusu-Donkor, he's a lecturer at the University of Ghana, helping us appreciate the role of pharmacists in our lives. Bottom line is, have a good relationship with your pharmacist. That can save your life. Thank you so much. We'll be right back
Thank you,
after
Josh.
this.